Welcome back to our channel, where real-life stories turn into unforgettable lessons. If you love stories filled with drama, emotion, and poetic justice, then you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe and stay with us till the end, because today's story will leave you speechless. This is the story of a man who thought money could buy everything, even respect, until life taught him a lesson he would never forget. The story begins with Ethan, a successful businessman in his mid-30s. He was tall, confident, and carried himself like a man who had conquered the world. But behind that charming smile hid arrogance and pride. Years ago, before he had wealth or luxury, Ethan was married to a woman named Clara. Clara was the complete opposite of him. She was simple, soft-spoken, and kind. When they met, Ethan had nothing. No business, no car, not even a stable job. But Clara didn't care. She loved him for who he was, not what he had. They got married in a small ceremony, with only a few friends and family. For a while, things were beautiful. They lived in a small apartment, shared instant noodles for dinner, and dreamed about a better life together. But when Ethan's luck changed, so did his heart. A few years later, Ethan's startup business took off. He began earning big money, bought a luxury car, moved into a fancy apartment, and started mingling with the elite. Clara, however, remained the same, humble, grounded, and supportive. But to Ethan, that humility began to look like weakness. He started feeling embarrassed to be seen with her. Her simple dresses, her quiet nature, and her small-town manners made him feel she didn't belong in his new world. His new business friends mocked her behind her back, and Ethan didn't defend her. Instead, he began to believe she was holding him back. One evening, Clara prepared his favorite dinner and waited eagerly to tell him some big news: she was pregnant. She had imagined his excitement, maybe even tears of joy. But when Ethan came home that night, he didn't smile. He threw his coat on the couch and poured himself a drink. When Clara told him the news, his reaction was cold. "Pregnant? Now? Clara, this isn't the time. My business is just taking off, and you're talking about babies." Her smile faded. She tried to explain, but he cut her off. "You just don't understand, do you? You're still living in your small world while I'm trying to build an empire." The argument turned ugly. For the first time, Ethan said the words that shattered her completely: "Maybe we never should have gotten married. You're not the woman I need anymore." Within weeks, he filed for divorce. Clara begged him to think it over, reminding him of their promises, their love, and their unborn child. But Ethan had made up his mind. He left her with nothing. No money, no house, no support. Clara gave birth to triplets, 2 boys and a girl, alone in a small rented room. She worked multiple jobs to feed them, barely sleeping, barely eating. But she never let her children see her pain. Years passed. Clara's children grew into bright, kind, and talented kids. She raised them to value hard work and kindness over wealth and pride. Meanwhile, Ethan's life, at least on the surface, seemed perfect. His company flourished, he drove luxury cars, and soon, he got engaged again, to a rich woman named Victoria. Victoria was everything Ethan thought he wanted: glamorous, elegant, and wealthy. Her father was a powerful businessman who promised Ethan new investments. Together, they were the picture of success. One day, while planning their lavish wedding, Ethan and Victoria went over the guest list. Ethan smirked when he thought about Clara. "You know," he told Victoria, "I should invite my ex-wife. It'll be fun to see her face when she realizes what she lost." Victoria laughed. "Oh, that would be delicious. Let's see what kind of rags she shows up in." They both laughed cruelly, imagining Clara arriving in cheap clothes, feeling small and humiliated in front of their wealthy guests. Ethan sent her an invitation, confident that she would either be too embarrassed to come or, if she did, she'd be a source of gossip. When Clara received the invitation, her heart skipped a beat. At first, she thought it must be a mistake. Then, she realized it wasn't. Ethan truly wanted to show off his success. For a moment, old pain resurfaced. She remembered the nights she cried herself to sleep, the times she went hungry so her children could eat. But then she looked at her triplets, now 12 years old, and smiled. "Let him see what true success looks like," she whispered. The wedding day arrived. The grand hall was decorated with white roses, chandeliers, and golden drapes. Expensive cars lined the entrance, and photographers captured every glamorous guest. Ethan stood proudly, greeting people, waiting for Clara to arrive. But when she finally did, the entire crowd went silent. A black limousine pulled up to the venue, and the chauffeur stepped out to open the door. First came 3 well-dressed children, the triplets, wearing matching suits and a glittering gown. Then, Clara stepped out. She was breathtaking. Dressed in a sleek, elegant gown with her hair neatly done, she looked every bit the woman of grace and confidence. Her children stood beside her proudly, holding her hands. Everyone turned to look. The whispers started instantly. "Who is she?" Someone murmured. "Is that his ex-wife?" Another gasped. Ethan froze. His smile faded. He had imagined her arriving in embarrassment, not like this. Victoria frowned, sensing his tension. "Who is she?" she demanded. Ethan muttered, "My ex-wife." Victoria's jaw tightened. "She doesn't look poor to me." Clara walked up the red carpet, her heels clicking softly against the floor. She stopped in front of Ethan and smiled politely. "Congratulations, Ethan. You look well." Ethan forced a smile. "Clara, you came." "Of course," she said calmly. "You invited me. I couldn't refuse." The guests watched in awe as the triplets turned to Victoria and greeted her politely. "Hello," they said in unison. We're Ethan's children. The air thickened. Gasps filled the room. Victoria looked shocked. "Your children?" She turned to Ethan. "You said you didn't have any." Ethan stuttered, trying to explain, but Clara's calm voice cut through the tension. "Oh, he does. These are his children. He just chose to forget them." Her words echoed across the hall. Guests whispered, some shaking their heads in disapproval. Clara turned to leave, but one of the boys handed a small envelope to Ethan. "Mom said to give you this." He opened it. Inside was a scholarship letter from one of the country's top schools. All 3 children had earned full academic scholarships. Clara smiled softly. "They're doing well, Ethan. I just wanted you to know." Victoria was furious. "You humiliated me," she hissed at Ethan. "You lied to me." But Ethan barely heard her. He was staring at the letter, his hands trembling. Memories of Clara's kindness, her sacrifices, and her love flashed before his eyes. He suddenly realized how blind he had been, how much he had lost. Victoria stormed off, leaving Ethan alone in the middle of his own wedding. The music stopped, and guests began whispering. The glamorous image he had built came crashing down. He tried to run after Clara, calling her name, but she didn't turn back. She got into the limo with her children and drove away, her dignity untouched, her head held high. Days later, Ethan tried to reach out to her. He sent messages, called, even showed up at her small but cozy house. When she opened the door, he looked broken. "Clara, I made a mistake. I was stupid, blind, selfish. I didn't see your worth." Clara looked at him quietly. "No, Ethan. You saw it. You just didn't value it." He pleaded, "Please, let me be part of their lives." Clara sighed softly. "They're your children. They deserve to know you. But they also deserve to know the truth. If you want to be in their lives, start by earning their respect, not buying it." Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face. Months passed. Ethan began visiting his children, not as a rich man trying to impress them, but as a father trying to understand them. He helped them with homework, cheered for them at their school events, and slowly began to rebuild the bond he once destroyed. Clara, on the other hand, found peace. She realized that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, it meant freeing herself from the past. One evening, as the sun set, Ethan visited again. The triplets were playing in the yard. He stood beside Clara, watching them laugh. "They're amazing," he said softly. "Yes," Clara replied, "they are. Because they learn to love without bitterness." Ethan looked at her with regret. "Do you think one day you can forgive me?" Clara turned to him with a faint smile. "Ethan, I forgave you a long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean we go back. It just means I'm free now." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "You've changed, Clara," she smiled. "No, I just remembered who I always was." And with that, she walked back to her children, leaving him standing in the soft golden light, a man finally realizing that real wealth isn't in money, but in the people who love you when you have nothing. From that day on, Ethan changed. He began donating to single mothers, funding scholarships for poor children, and quietly trying to make amends for his past. People saw him as generous, but only Clara knew that his generosity came from guilt, and from a heart finally learning humility. As for Clara and her triplets, they thrived. She opened a small business of her own and built a life filled with love, laughter, and self-respect. She no longer needed revenge. Her success was the sweetest one. Years later, when the triplets graduated, Ethan attended the ceremony. He sat in the back, clapping proudly, tears in his eyes. When they looked at him, they smiled, not with anger, but with forgiveness. Clara stood on the stage as their names were called. She looked at Ethan and nodded, a silent acknowledgement that the past was over. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't humiliation. It's success, peace, and the strength to walk away with your dignity intact. The man who once tried to shame his ex-wife learned that pride fades, wealth can crumble, but grace, true grace, never goes unnoticed. So remember, never underestimate the person who loved you when you had nothing. Because one day, they might be the one walking away, while you're left standing in the ruins of what could have been. Thank you for watching. If you liked this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. See you in the next video.